Hello, Mr. Mulroney. What was the reason that your government pressed ahead with Saskatchewan treaty land entitlement and not other Aboriginal issues?
Well, when we came in '84, we inherited the file of 76, which was the understanding of 76, which was unsatisfactory to the federal government, to the provincial government, and to the Treaty Indians. And so we decided to take it, to engage in the problem, but in a different manner. And that's what we began to do, which resulted in the treaty signed 20 years ago, month of September.
Without breaking cabinet confidences, how was the support this settlement around the table got?
Well, given the enormous cost of this, which I think now is somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't know, it started at 500 million, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $650 million now. You can imagine that with deficit difficulties and budget pressures, the enthusiasm in favor of the cabinet, of the cabinet in favor of this was not overwhelming. But Saskatchewan Native leaders had strong allies. Ray Natition began, and then Ray was defeated in 1988 in Saskatoon, but Bill McKnight then became the senior and only member of the government from Saskatchewan, and he pressed it very hard. He and I had lots of lunches and dinners to talk about this, and he persuaded me of the vital importance for the future of Saskatchewan and Saskatchewan's native populations that this be done. And so I dealt with the Privy Council office, and I dealt with the Prime Minister's office, of course, and then the cabinet and the caucus. And we eventually got the support that was required, and we pushed it through. Pierre Cadieux was the minister. After Bill, Tom Siddon did a terrific job as well. So it wasn't something that happened overnight. But the decision, the fundamental decision to proceed, was taken by my government with very strong support and leadership from the ministers I've mentioned, principally Bill McKnight. Provincially, I should say, and Grant Devine had been very supportive, his government, extremely supportive. And when Grant left office, Roy Romano came in provincially, and he was very good as well. So we all worked together to make it happen. As I say, 20 years ago, I think a few weeks ago. And I think it's been quite a landmark success for Saskatchewan and for our Indian native populations ever since.
Why did you decide to attend the signing ceremony in north of Saskatchewan?
Well, I decided to attend because it was such an important matter. There was so much resources involved, but also symbolism involved, that finally there was going to be a major treaty that had been undertaken 100 years before. It was finally going to be honored. And it was a question of bringing honor to the crown, of respecting earlier statements to the native, to the Indian populations, that this is what was going to happen. It finally did. And as you can see from the results, while it did represent a major commitment of funds, I think people would agree that it was a wise investment of funds. I remember just about the same time discussions that we had in the cabinet about Hibernia, Newfoundland. Newfoundland had been a have-not province ever since it entered Confederation in 1949. But we pushed forward and did the Hibernia deal in the Atlantic Accord, and that has transformed Newfoundland and Labrador from a have-not province into a have province. Well, in some ways, this was the same opportunity for important parts of the Saskatchewan population, and that's why we did it.
How did you feel on the occasion of this historic signing ceremony?
I thought it was great. We were out there in Saskatchewan, and Chief Roland Crow had his blue jeans on, and they were pressed, as he said, and we had a hell of a time. It was a great day of celebration. The provincial and federal representatives were happy, but not as happy as the Indian leadership, the chiefs. They were extremely happy because they knew what was going to happen, and they turned out to be 100% right. What has happened has been good news for them all the way.
Aside from our inclusion in the Charter of Rights and Freedom, the three main events as seen by Saskatchewan Indian people has been receiving the right to vote from Diefenbaker, this treaty under your government, and the residential school apology from Stephen Harper. Why have conservative regimes managed to deliver that much?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but I suppose, I mean, I knew Mr. Diefenbaker, I supported him, and I know Prime Minister Harper, and I know myself. And I think that our commitment as individuals and as members of the same political party is to remove injustice and unfairness from our national life everywhere we can. You know, be it for Japanese Canadians during the Second World War, or the fight against apartheid in South Africa, which Canada led for many years on behalf of Nelson Mandela and breaking down the barriers of apartheid, and fairness for our native peoples, for the Indians in Saskatchewan, the Inuit up north, and so on. I think this is part of the conservative philosophy, that you stop getting these airy-fairy theories up here and you get down to the real question of what can we do in real terms that is going to improve the lives of ordinary people in Saskatchewan and elsewhere. And that's what we did.
Well, Mr. Mulroney, this is it. Thank you very much for your time.